All right, time to unset. How you doing today? How you feeling? That's enough small talk. Let's get after it. Hello, what's up? Welcome to the Mind Unset episode 2. I want to get straight into it. A small word of warning, there's some adult language in this episode. If you're listening on the speakers in the car with your kids or someone who may not dig that, consider this your heads up. My guest today is an artist, graphic designer, clothing designer, filmmaker, photographer. He's just a maker. This guy's so proficient in so many mediums, and what I love is that when he's working on a project, he usually finds a way to combine several of them into the project at the same time. His YouTube channel is incredibly entertaining. We talked for an hour and still didn't cover everything I had in my conversation notes, so I'm hoping he'll agree to come back for another chat. All right, grab a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, bourbon, some seltzer, whatever you got going on. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with Mr. Dustin Klein. So what's up, man? Dustin Klein, thanks for being here. Let me just say that first. I'm so digging the background over there, and I'm digging that you take the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I actually am really curious of what has started you on this journey. I know this is, and we can restart too, but I'm actually just, because I know you haven't actually produced any, there's no like public facing pieces yet. So I'm just kind of curious, like you're diving into a new thing right now.
I was kicking this around for about a year to start this podcast, and I didn't do it because I kept saying, well, who the hell wants to hear somebody else talk about shit? There's 1 million podcasts and 48 million episodes out there. That's the statistic I read. And I was trying to struggle to do something different. When I came across this whole idea to do the Mind Unset, I thought, there's one person I think it'd be a really great interview. It'd be Dustin, because of your thing that you wrote on your site. And I'm going to read it. It says, basically, it's about the process and skewing whatever it is. It's not just doing it the way it's always been done. That's boring as shit, and nobody wants that. And then, how do you do what's been done 100 times? You just do it. We all have our own paths, inspirations, experiences, traumas, and we can't help but have our own voice. And I think if there's anything that is so powerful to egg anyone on to do anything creative, it's those 2 paragraphs right there.
Cool.
And so that's kind of how I ended up jumping back into this, because my plan is to talk to the creatives. You know, the creatives take care of everybody. But who's taking care of the creatives?
I mean, I guess it's kind of up to, I think one of the things for makers, creatives, is like a major component to being a creative is you have to, I call it filling the well. And it's kind of like every human needs to eat food, sleep, but creatives and makers need to like refuel the inspiration, because the well will run dry if you don't do that. So in a sense, you kind of got to take care of yourself in a way. Like you just got to know that. And also it's not necessarily anybody else's responsibility. It's kind of like you've chosen this path, or you've maybe realized that this is a path that you need to go on, being a creative person and pursuing it full time. And, you know, and part of just doing that is learning, like, what does that mean? You know, like if you have a kid, the same thing, like you got to pay attention to the kid, keep it healthy, feed it. Like it's just, once you commit to this thing, it's just part of that commitment.
Exactly. And that's a great analogy. So before we get too far into it, just for those that may not know you, you were born in Fargo.
Yeah. So born in Fargo, North Dakota. The day after high school graduation, I moved to Portland, Oregon. I was obsessed with skateboarding as a kid in isolated, barely pre-internet North Dakota, and the West Coast is where skating was. So I moved there and just kind of wanted to find this path of just find a path. Like I didn't at that point really know that I was creative or that I needed to do that. And fell into a job as a bike messenger in Sacramento, ended up moving to San Francisco. And it was there that I realized, like, oh, you can make things for a living. Like, i.e., like you can be an artist for a living. Like I'd never really been exposed to that. And ever since I saw that, everything kind of shifted, and I was like, okay, that's the path that I need to take. Like I just knew that that's what was right for me. So then I would do whatever it took that was like my North Star, to go towards that direction. And it's manifested in several different ways ever since I noted or realized that too, which is, I don't know, kind of interesting. It's not like I have to be a painter and all I did was paint. Like I need to be a maker, and I'll do whatever it takes within these certain set of parameters to make. Yeah. And then of course we all need jobs and money. So I want to make and be able to make those things work too.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the amazing thing that I think is really interesting to me today is that, you know, first of all, to move to the West Coast as an 18-year-old, did you have any family out there or friends, or did you just go?
There was one friend in Portland, and I actually wanted to move to San Francisco, but I just like couldn't figure it out. I knew nobody there. I didn't know how to live on my own. Like I couldn't figure it out. But one person in Portland, I was like, well, Portland's still, you know, Burnside, I know there's something there. So that's what I did, was move there. And then, and actually from there, I ended up interning at this skateboard magazine in Sacramento called Heckler. And that was kind of like doing the path towards more what I wanted to do. In Portland, I was just like, I worked in a grocery store. I didn't really know how to meet people. I ended up living by myself. Like it was like a throwaway year to realize like, oh, I got to like focus on something to make life like enriching.
Yeah.
Who knew?
When you went to Heckler, did you go to Heckler? Did you work there before you went to the photography school, or is that what sent you? Is that what kind of motivated you to take that photography further?
So it was actually the year in Portland where I was like not doing anything. I was like, okay, like skateboarding photography, like how do I be involved with this culture? Ultimately, like subcultures are things that I'm very attracted to. At the time, it was skate culture. So then I heard about this Rocky Mountain School of Photography in Missoula, Montana. It was a 3-month summer intensive. So I moved there to do that and just kind of like build some skills. And when I was at Missoula, at that school, I sent like a portfolio to Heckler, which worked great because the school was ending. I was in Missoula. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. And they're like, come to Sacramento. It's like, yes, California.
Nice.
One of the things that's kind of, I think is crazy about the Heckler thing is that, you know, ultimately I didn't go this skate route. I didn't go this photography route. But when I was in the editor's office in Sacramento, I was like, oh, I need a job. Like, do you know anyone that has any work? And the guy was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I'd work at a skate shop or a record store, or maybe it'd be a bike messenger. They're like, oh yeah, cool. Like, I'll keep my ears open. And then like an hour later, this guy walks into the office, asks the editor a question, and the editor, his name was Sonny, goes, hey, do you know anyone that wants to be a bike messenger? And the guy was like, yeah, we need one. He was like, oh, this guy needs a job. I was like, okay, you're hired. Come see us when you're done. And then that totally altered my life, because then it, you know, was like, oh, messenger culture, cycling. I started this cycling apparel clothing company. Because it was like, there's clothing for skaters. How come there's not clothing for like urban cyclists? So it just kind of
was
like
that CoMotion?
It was Cadence.
Cadence, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
CoMotion is your artwork.
Yeah, exactly. All good. I don't expect anyone to know all the.
No, I did. I've been reading about it, so I apologize for that. But Cadence, yes, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're now an instrumental part of the whole Portland cycling scene. So that was absolutely a pivotal moment, that as what I see as far as, and the combination of your photography with your visual art, you're the epitome of the modern artist today, which has to be like, you're a YouTuber, you're a graphic designer, you're a fashion designer, you're a photographer, and you're a video maker. Like you're the entire, all facets of the creation that you have to do. And that's kind of what I think most modern artists and creators have to do, is they have to embrace these different facets, or you get yourself in a lot of trouble because it all changes so fast. I mean, do you think that is true? I mean, it changes so fast. You got to wear like 15 different hats, or else you put all your eggs in one basket. You're done when that medium changes.
Yeah. I have always been like I'm fine. I think from skate, I really learned like DIY culture, and like that is just like in me. So just do it yourself.
Right.
Because no one's, I wanted to like be involved with skating or whatever. And no one really is going to give you a chance if you're new because you don't have any experience. And to me, it was like, well, what's the difference? Like try to fucking prove yourself to somebody. Fuck that. Or just start doing it. You know what I mean? Like, so with Cadence was like, just start, I guess I got to figure out how to screen print. Where do you get t-shirts? Like, I guess I got to design things. Like, how do you do that? Oh, it's on a computer. Where do you get a computer? Like, it's just all this little troubleshooting. And I really like doing a lot of different things because otherwise I'll get really bored if I'm just doing one thing. I would be really good at one thing, but I spread it out across just a bunch of different stuff for better or for worse. And like you're saying, there's times where it actually isn't the worst thing in the world.
Well, this is kind of what the rabbit hole I'm going down is because, today, if I hear one more person tell me to niche it down, I'm going to explode. When I was growing up, it was like you have interest in a lot of things. But now if you have a lot of interest in a lot of things, you're looked at as not focused or scattered versus curious. You can't, especially if you're trying to do something in a business model, like, there's a guy that has a fly fishing podcast. And I mean, he's the biggest fly fishing podcast in the world. And that makes sense because it's such a specific thing. But to as an artist, I guess if your medium is sculpture, you work in sculpture for 100 years and you become the best sculptor in the world. But I don't think the new modern world, kind of embraces that. I think it's such a high impact culture that we're in and fast moving that I think you have to be so light on your feet and easy to switch gears and just be good in several mediums. Do you agree with that or no?
I think a lot of it is that you have to have the skills and that are behind the scenes. So it's like, like if it's doing a podcast, you're like, figure out what the thing is you want to talk about. That's the forward facing. Then it's like, got to design some things and then like figure out the technical stuff and like, how's my flow? What do I ask questions? Do I like tell stories? Like, and so much of it is like puppet mastering.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole social media to help promote the thing. So people actually listen to it. Like there is never a right answer to anything, which is, recently I've been doing a lot of like trying to knuckle down and like take YouTube a little bit more serious to like optimize what I'm doing. Like putting all this time in, like, why not have more views than less? So like, what does that take? And just doing like homework, like reading, research, whatever. There's like half the people say do this and the other half say do the opposite of that. And you're like, what the fuck? Like,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I get that. You did one YouTube episode where you were talking about the data. You were getting kind of consumed by the data numbers and watching your, and it was making you a little nuts or just affecting you, not making you nuts, but it was affecting you. And that's kind of, there's a whole, Goodhart's law, which says, a measure ceases to be a good measure when it becomes the target. So it's like when you if the number becomes the target, you're absolutely missing the point, and then you do unhealthy things or uncustomary things to meet the number, right? So then you take yourself out of your own shell and you create shit that Dustin wouldn't create just because you think it's going to hit the mark.
Yes.
If it doesn't hit the mark, you've done two things. You've not hit the mark, and then you've done something you didn't really want to do anyway. So you might as well do what you freaking want to do and say, fuck it. And your fans are going to watch it for you. And you act more like the firefly. You shine your light and you attract people to you rather than running around with a butterfly net. Make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly. I've gone exactly through that. And I think the one caveat is to realize that there is like, you need at least some sort of a base to start doing that. Because in the very beginning, no one's paying attention. So and actually in the beginning, and this is what I'll tell people when they want to start is like, dude, no one's watching. It's really hard to get people to watch. So get over yourself. Do whatever you want. You are free to experiment in the beginning.
Exactly.
And of course, still moving forward. I think I just kind of talked myself out of that one. Yeah, I don't know. Lost that one. I need that butterfly net. Where is it?
It's just when you go down that rabbit hole, you end up, like I said, just compromising what you normally would want to do. So you just got to trust your gut. But it's really hard to trust your gut. Like there are a lot of YouTubers quitting right now. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's kind of a gnarly job. Like there's this thing I see a lot on YouTube with like, especially like the back end side of it is like, oh, like work hard, produce more, this and that. And, there's the one thing that they never talk about is like, just do less. Like, you don't have to quit. I mean, if you want to quit, do whatever you want, but life isn't black and white. Like these people are like, oh, I can't keep up 1 million videos a day. I'm out of here. It's like, what if you did one a month? Like it can still work.
Do better, do less, but do better.
Exactly. And that's what recently I've started to implement is like, I was doing 2 videos a week and I was just kind of not enjoying my life. It was too much like grind. And I was like, well, why don't I just do 1 a week and enjoy my life? And like, it's working. So who cares? Totally what you were saying is like, am I chasing the number or my life's experience? And obviously the right answer is the life experience. Like one of the curses of YouTube is that it's so transparent. And that transparency is like, it's not healthy, especially for like the creator. Because it's so easy to constantly compare. Opposed to like podcasts, no one has any idea what the hell anyone's doing unless it's on a platform like YouTube. You're like, oh. So yeah, constantly I'll see people in the same sphere and I'm like, why are they like twice as big as me? Like, but it's not about that, really. It's just about do what feels right, enjoy the process, and if all goes well, other people will watch it and like, you can do your thing. And I don't think that I'm necessarily like, I know that I'm an acquired taste. So I kind of just need to remind myself that like, I'm not the vanilla that everyone's going to love. So therefore I'm not going to be the million billion sub person. Like, it's just, I'm too myself. And that's okay too. Like that's perfectly perfect. Like, so realize that, own that, and just be with that and let the number be whatever the number is. Like exactly what you said. Like once you stop focusing on it or looking at it, just life gets a lot better.
That was my problem with starting my podcast. I was looking at the end result. And, you can never start a painting when you're trying to think of what you're going to do with that painting before the painting's even done. And I'm a writer, so I can't really start, but this goes back to wearing all those hats, right? You're also the marketing person. You're also the graphic designer. You're also the person, social media manager. So I'm sitting there writing, thinking, well, how's this scene going to play with this? And you can't create like that at all. And they're your fans. I think your fans, you don't need to be the million and billion these days. You just need like 2,000 to 5,000 super fans that support everything you do. Because, Joe Rogan and Dax Shepard and all these people, they're the pinnacle. They're the guys that have been doing it up forever in podcasting. But like the people that come to watch Dustin Klein, I've seen the chats on your YouTube lives and stuff, which if listeners don't have a clue, they need to go to Dustin Klein. Everything's been done, and check that YouTube channel out, which I'll mention. We'll get into that later. But your chats are freaking hilarious, man. Your fans, like, they love you for who you are. That's exactly why I'm there, is because you're not vanilla. And I can, like you said in your own quote, who wants to watch the same shit all the time? I think it's hilarious when you're, but I'm going to send you a new camera for your over-top camera because
dude, I got to deal with that.
I'm going to mail you something tomorrow. I want to see a video of you smashing that shit with a hammer.
That's a good live stream. That's a good one.
There you go.
Totally.
You go. But we'll hook you up. We got to get you something. But it's kind of fun to watch you wrestle with that. It's entertaining.
Dude, yeah, that fucking thing. Dude, this stuff. What are the funny? I think this is. I hate it, but from like, I have like a little bit enough self-awareness to know, like, I'm not just this. Like, I can sort of see outside of myself. And one of the things with those fucking live streams, I swear to God, every single one, there's some weird technical thing that happens that's completely different than the last one. And it's totally like you plug the one hole in the dam and then the other leak is over there and you're like, but it's I feel like it's just comical at this point.
That's why people watch them. It's it's an accident. It is. Well, that's why everybody kind of has to, they can't look away. They can't look away. It's like, oh, Dustin's doing a live stream. Let's see what happens. Who's he going to be yelling at behind him? I love it. I absolutely love it. Do you ever have a desire to do like a traditional art show? Is that ever in the back of your head?
I at one point I was really focused on trying to do stuff like that, but I kind of put too much pressure on it. So it's, you know, it's just like a little bit, yeah, like I kind of psych myself out about it. I do still make like, you know, like fine artwork, or basically to me that means is like make things that aren't to be commercial or even like for an art show or whatever, just make to make. But I put like so much pressure on like having to make stuff that's like good or beautiful or presentable. And it totally like put a lot of like weight on it. So now it's just lighter. It'll be just like as it feels right to do it. One interesting thing I can say about just process and like the live stream got me to think about it is like anything that I would almost say like everyone knows that to get good at something, you just have to keep doing it. And especially if there's something that you're passionate about and want to be good at it, all you have to do is just keep doing it. And the real key to getting good at it is you have to want it so bad that you're okay with sucking at it at the very beginning. So your first tests and exposures into it are like, they're not that good. They're uncomfortable. They don't look right, but you're still like so stubborn, hooked, passionate, determined that you'll just keep doing it. If that formula can just keep happening, like you'll just get good at it. And of course you have to put a little bit of attention on like, you know, well, what could I do to make that a little better? Not a ton, but just some intention towards improvement. And it gets better. I feel like the live stream is a good example of that. Is a little bit, I don't know why I do them, but I'm just stubborn enough where I'm just consistent and I just keep doing them. And I hope to God they've gotten better, but
they have.
It's just kind of one of those things, like pick a thing and just do it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that landed for him. He's like, why is he talking about doing something a lot?
No, I mean, this is exactly what the whole, like I think a lot of people don't understand is that in order to make great art, and I don't mean that condescending, like, oh, they don't understand. I think you have to in order to make great art, you got to make a lot of art.
Yes.
Like people think you just sit down and do that painting. It's just like photographers. They might shoot 1,000 shots to get 5 shots that they can keep or are happy with.
Yes.
It's like you spend 30 years writing music so that you can write the one hit song and everyone calls you an overnight success. So I think if you want to make great art, you better be making a lot of art, because that's how you clear the pipe, right? You turn on a pipe that's been sitting there for years and it's all full of rusty water. If you don't let that rusty water run out, you're never going to let the clear shit run out. So all of the bad work, all of the experimental shit that you do is to clear the pipe for the great shit that's coming later. And I think your YouTubes, there's nothing wrong with the live stream. I think it's a charming little glimpse into, and people don't have any idea what amount of work that goes into that. And I don't think a lot of people have an idea of just the amount of editing and shooting and getting off the bike, riding down the hill, setting your camera shot, riding back up the hill and doing all that like 3-4 times to get that seamless shot that looks like you just did it once because you got real lucky. Like, I think if more people saw that, they would actually have a concept of how hard it is to be a professional YouTuber.
Oh, 2 things here. One, I think also like a lot of people, like you're like, people don't know what it takes. Another way of saying that is like, people just don't see what it takes. You find out about stuff after they've put in the quote 10,000 hours of
exactly
shitty work. It's good work, but the results are not premium. You know, premium comes at a price. of time and effort. So it's, you know, like people got to put the reps in. And then, this is kind of the similar thing is like, people don't see the, like all the leg work and all the grunt work that goes into getting that 2 seconds is generous. It's like a 15 frame clip of a thing. And to me, it's like, that's fine if they don't know, as long as when you see it, it's just like, it's just like deep psychology. You don't even realize, just like, oh, this is like satisfying. Like, it's just interesting to watch. Like, that's my like end result of the like slogging back and forth, carrying a fucking drone all day for 3 shots. What, is this worth it? Maybe not. I don't know. Like,
it's totally worth it. As a viewer, I will say it's totally worth it. I know it's a real pain in the ass, but I see the, you know, I mean, shit, the drone shots are always money, you know, when you get those, but I know they're not easy. And I know it probably takes you an hour for 3 seconds of drone footage, and, you know, you got to get them out of the weeds, but I think it's working. Earlier, you mentioned a little bit of anxiety that you were having when it comes to, you know, you're putting the pressure on your art to be great out of the box, which I totally identify with. And I had a guest on last week, Taylor Lynn, who her grandmother is Loretta Lynn. And she just played the Grand Ole Opry for her 90th birthday with Jack White and all those guys. But she was talking about how it was badass. And she came in we talked a couple days after, and she was talking about anxiety, how she was trying not to ruin the moment, right? Because she put so much pressure. She was wearing Loretta's jumpsuit from 1970s. She had it, like, she took it out of the museum and wore her grandmother's jumpsuit in the Opry, but she had talked about it. Yeah. And I had said the same thing, that, you know, it's anxiety when you're trying to, you put so much pressure on yourself and you tend to ruin the moment. How do you work through your anxiety? How prevalent is it in your stuff, and how do you fight it?
I mean, there's a better way. There's like a more famous quote of this than what I'm going to say, but if you're not nervous about something, especially like performing, that means you're not passionate enough about it. So in a way, that discomfort is like a positive sign that it's something that you care about, because it's who knows why, you know, that's for somebody smarter than me to explain. And I think the thing is, like, feeling that and knowing, like, okay, this feels like no, but the real thing to do is just go forward with it. And the more times that it's the same thing as the reps. Like, the more times that you do this thing that's like uncomfortable to do, that's scary, that's unknown, the more you get used to that awkward, gross, uncomfortable feeling, and the feeling of like slowly pushing through it. And it's always, you know, it's like cycling. You never get any faster. You never get any. How the fuck did I forget this one? It never gets any easier. You only get faster, and it's the exact same thing. Like, it's always hard,
right?
But you get familiar with it being hard, and you just kind of, you know, you just go through it, and you do it. And I think, yeah, to me, is just, I don't know if I'm just stubborn or like, I don't focus too heavy on like failing, or a big one that's not a big one for me that I hear a lot of people saying is like, what people think. Like, what a waste of energy. Who gives a fuck what someone thinks? Because what someone thinks is every version of spectrum that you could think, from like completely loving it to completely hating it. Everything in that is what people think. So you're like, okay, so what? Like, that's just, it's so confounded myself with that.
No, that's really powerful. That's really powerful, because it all comes down to, you know, this whole social persona that we have, right? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, yada, yada, yada. It's all about hearing what people think and then telling people what you think. So, and to your last point, though, I found it really cool. Do you think, is a great question I heard, and I wanted to pose it to you. Do you think it's more important to believe in yourself, or is it more important to do the work?
I mean, to me, they're kind of the same thing. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to be willing to do the work. Because you'll just think like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. Meh.
Interesting.
And I've seen that. You see it like,
Yeah.
oh, I always wanted to play hacky sack. Like, the fuck are you waiting for? I always wanted to draw things. You're like, cool. You're really good at arguing for your limitations. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Nice conversation. Bye. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, reasons are just another word for excuses. But I found that to be an interesting question, because there are a lot of people that are probably going through the motions, right? We hear fake it till you make it. That's kind of the whole gist of that question is there are people who seriously believe in the work, and then but they may not believe in themselves. Like, you have flawed artists that, they do this great work, but they're tragic people. And then but they still get this amazing shit done. That's what blows my mind. Right. And then you have these people that are so overly confident, and they just think they're fantastic or whatever, and their work is kind of shit. I just was trying to resolve the two, in my mind that's an interesting dynamic. I was wondering what your take on it was.
The tortured artist thing, that actually makes a ton of sense, because whether it's not believing in themselves or like living through some trauma or some dark thing, there's a lot of fuel and energy there to create work from. So in a way, that's like kind of sounds kind of messed up, but it's kind of a good foundation to produce really good work, because you're kind of like crippled by emotion. Emotion is essentially like the thing of all art, is like we're just trying to translate feeling between human to human through different mediums. All mediums, music, video, painting, blah, blah, blah. It's just, which is just like energy. So if you're feeling this intense energy, dark, intense energy is really thick and heavy, and it's like kind of easy to like play into and like brood in, and just like make work off of that. Yeah. Your life isn't going to be that great, but your work might be. Could probably, who knows? If you put the reps in.
Yeah, it's going to resonate with somebody. It'll resonate with somebody. I mean, I think there's something for everybody out there. But so I want to ask you, like, your freaking videos have so much good food in there. It is so unfair. Like, I watch your videos and then I end up starving my ass off. So, like, do you prepare all that shit? Especially today's. You had a freaking burger that was like on a pretzel roll had like impossible meat and avocado. I mean, shit, man, I'm starving. Yeah,
well, that was a camp out, but so I have like a small van that I like built out, or I had built out, that I like use as like a staging point, so I can do these rides and stuff. And there's a fridge in there, but I think it's sort of like for sure, a big part of it is because of the videos, to like try and like, one, show something different, so I'm not always eating the same thing, and two, is sort of this like, how can I like kind of outdo myself? Because I am for sure, like, if there's a food pill, give me a food pill. I would love that. Like, it's sort of like eating's like kind of like a chore, we like to cook and do all that, but it's not quite like eat out, that kind of laziness, but I don't know. Yeah. Eating is...
Look, man, one of the hardest questions to answer every damn day is what's for dinner?
Yes, exactly. Oh man.
I hate that question. What are we having for dinner? I hate it.
How do you guys usually resolve it? You got like a system?
No. Well, the system is I cook. My wife is just like, I don't care. Just whatever you're going to cook, just make it not suck. But, we live in Mexico, so it's a lot of tortillas and avocados and radishes and peppers and, but if you go out, it's all meat. Like, everything's meat. I'm not a big red meat eater, but I'm not a vegetarian, but I do fish and stuff, but it would be really tough to be vegetarian here, but we try to figure it out. Usually we end up on the lazy side and just go get fish tacos.
my wife has been doing this thing recently where I made our fridge. Our fridge was aluminum. You know, traditionally they're whatever the fuck for metal that's magnetic. They're usually magnetic. Ours wasn't, so I made it a chalkboard. And so on that, what a long-winded way to say that. She wrote like Monday through Sunday, and she'll just like do like a quick menu. And that little hack is still like a super pain in the ass. And you're like, okay, like what's the thing for the week? But it's really helpful. It's totally one of those things that it like, if the time, stitch in time saves 9, it's that. You take like 5 minutes at the beginning of the week to save like an hour throughout the rest of the week.
Exactly.
It's crazy how just knowing what we're going to have, nothing's prepped. We still got to make it. But just knowing is like so much faster. It's really interesting.
Yeah. The meal prep is, we try it. We do really well for a while. And then we just, we either get really busy and it's just like, shit, let's just go run down the street and grab tacos. But I totally agree with the meal prep thing. That would be the other thing about your videos, man, is your soundtracks just kick ass. I noticed recently, you have all of this like old Motown shit going on. Is that deliberate?
Yeah, well, it's just stuff that I've figured out how to get. And a lot of it is from a DJ called Chances with Wolves. And he does the real legwork of like sourcing all this crazy music. And then I just use what I can from his music.
Nice.
And then also my buddy Ron, who's like a continuing character in the videos, who's just my friend, but he's also good on camera. He makes music and he put like a little library together. He's such a great
awesome. Compliment, you guys, when you ride. It's so hilarious. His wit is so sharp, and he just comes off with these one-line zingers. It's hilarious. And I just noticed in the video today, Ron did the soundtrack for that, so that's pretty cool. If there was who's a photographer or an artist that should be required study for people that you like? If there's one person that you think people should definitely know their work.
Ooh, that's a gnarly one. Okay, I think of like influences, like colors. So there's not like one, like what's your favorite color? Like
right. Sure. Totally get it.
That answer is going to change throughout the day.
Of course.
To me, there's not like, you need to know this. So part of it's just like remembering. But when you say that, the first thing I think of is like Ed Templeton, who's like skate culture, pro skater, kind of has morphed into, he started a skateboard company. You're going to see similar parallels here. A lot of photography. He's a painter. He's just like this interesting, like DIY artist guy. And I don't think his work is even like all that astounding. I just love the path that he's gone.
Is he the guy that did all the black and white shots of the kids in LA, the really famous black and white skater shots that you see from a while ago?
Maybe. He had a book called Teenage Smokers. Okay. That was kind of like went around for a while. He was in The Beautiful Losers. Yeah. Which was like how would I explain that? It was like there's actually a Beautiful Losers documentary too, which, I mean, come on, the easiest way to unpack anything is to watch a video about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the making ofs.
Who would you say if that question was posed to you? I'm always looking for.
Man, artists, I think you know, what's really interesting to me now is looking back hindsight. As a visual artist, I think Keith Haring was like the pinnacle of the postmodernist idea, like when in the mid 90s, early 90s, when, you know, they were doing Seinfeld and shows about nothing and all this stuff and all the irony that was hitting pretty hard. And Keith Haring had this way to do something, again, like we talked about earlier, that looked so simple, but was immensely difficult. And I think his art was like so playful, but also had so much going on in it that I think if I was going to say art world, he would have to be one. And then, I don't know, songwriters, man. I mean, John Prine is the guy Prine was pretty much who shaped my songwriting. Once I was in a kid in Philly and I was listening to the Ramones and Hanoi Rocks and all that Lou Reed's Velvet Underground stuff. And I got to Nashville and discovered John Prine and fell out of my chair. And, you know, a guy from Kentucky who's singing these country songs, but man, he just blew me away for that kind of stuff.
Dude, that is a cool, I love hearing that. Like there's totally different genres. So like kind of again, the energy was right.
Yeah, and it might have been the time of my life, you know. It's like you just have to be open to accepting stuff when it comes along. I think, even if you get what you need when you need it. That's the cliche quote. But
I like that.
I heard Prine and Tom Waits, and within like 2 months of each other, and I was just like, holy shit, you know. And then I went down the rabbit hole of Ricky Lee Jones and Bonnie Raitt and all these people that just were masters of their craft of songwriting. So, you know, that's kind of the angle I would go in that world. But I'm like you, it'll change in 2 hours based on my mood or how I'm feeling, or if I go for a long bike ride or something and then I come back. There's no, like, people ask what's your favorite song. It's impossible. It depends on the day and the minute.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of just like what comes out right now.
Exactly what you're.
There sure is something interesting about. You said they're masters of their craft. It's fascinating how it doesn't matter what genre somebody is in. If they're like a master at it, they are like infinitely mesmerizing to consume their work. And like, kind of, I want to ask, like, what is that? Like, is it because they've taken the journey so far up the mountain that all of us in the valley are like, whoa, like that's what the air looks like up there? Like,
the thread of creativity and creation, whether you're a chef, photographer, professional dancer, musician, painter, sculptor, I think ballet dancer, there's a thread that is unique that runs through all of those different mediums, because it takes the same thing to reach that level of whatever you're doing. I think there's a, I'm not saying it very well, but I need my friggin' thesaurus or something. Shit, I've got a mental block. But there's you see what I'm saying? There's a thread that's similar. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're great at it, I think you could talk to if you were making videos and you went and talked to a chef, you could both speak the same language, because whatever you're doing, there's a similarity there. Yes? No?
For sure. It across many mediums. The more I experiment with different mediums, the more I realize like how much similarity there is. It's actually like the fringy details that are different, but ultimately it's a lot of the same.
Yeah. I mean, there was a great show, MTV. It's so funny, MTV. They, years and years and years ago, I tried to find it again, but it was called Iconoclasts. Did you? They took like different people from different mediums. Eddie Vedder went out to surf with Laird Hamilton. So like they took two mediums and two guys at the top of their field. Yeah. And so Eddie Vedder went to Laird Hamilton's house for a weekend. And then Laird Hamilton went on tour with Eddie Vedder's for a weekend. And so they had this whole juxtapose of those guys talking about each other's lives from their perspectives. And they did like Wolfgang Puck hung out with Luciano Pavarotti. And like, it was so freaking cool. It was exactly that dynamic that we're talking about.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, because then you're hearing two masters talking about their experience through their different filters.
Exactly.
But they're bumping up against each other, and you're like, oh, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, and like one guy's going, "You're great," and the other guy's going, "No, but you're great," and he's going, "No, but you're great. No, you're great." So, but there's when they strip that shit away, you get to see why each one of them is great, and then you realize it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, and there's absolutely something super important about doing things that aren't comfortable or that are out of your element. Like,
absolutely.
Yes, focus on your thing, do the reps, but it's so important to, and I would say like consistently try things that are not in your wheelhouse, because it keeps you just kind of like humble, loose, helps you learn a little easier. Like, it's just, it's pretty interesting.
Well, what's really interesting is you just kind of answered my question that I was going to wrap the whole thing up with. I was going to ask you, what you would say, for years, for decades and decades, we've had gatekeepers in this world that kept people from their creativity just getting out to the world. We had record labels and we had, art galleries and film companies and stuff. But now I think the creation's been given back to the creators with all of the mediums we have, killer phones that take great video. So you don't need these other people to foster your creative reach to people. So, and you just said, you just get outside your comfort zone. So what would you say to somebody that's like looking at you going, man, DK is so far up the curve. I'm never going to get there. Like, what would you say to a young creator who's thinking about starting today, and other than get outside your comfort zone, which I wholly and thoroughly endorse and believe in, because if you're, that's when your discomfort, when you feel that discomfort, you actually feel like you're really kind of doing something.
Yeah. And I've heard too, like when you feel discomfort or like I was saying earlier, like nervous about something like that, that's generally a good sign. Like kind of lean into that, as counterintuitive as it is. Like that fear and awkwardness and discomfort can actually lead to, I don't know why it is like that, because you would think it would be like complete joy and elation, and then everyone would just be doing things they should be doing. I have no idea why that is the way it is. Ultimately, like, know what direction you want to go and just start making like any small steps. And they're not glamorous steps. It's dumb shit like send an email to this thing or look up this part or like clear off a table. Like it's not really glamorous, and it's just always moving towards the thing that you want to move towards is really the ultimate. Just kind of figure out what your North Star is, what you're passionate about, and then just work that direction. And things will work out. I guarantee. You just keep going that way. It'll work. And if it doesn't, you can email Chris.
Exactly. I was going to actually say your email address there. I was supposed to do that. I dropped that fucking punchline there. But, and the more you go outside your comfort zone, the bigger your comfort zone gets, right?
There you go. Yeah, that's a little chunk of wisdom right there. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, too, like the more you do, the more kind of you get used to being uncomfortable. And then too, you'll realize there's times when you're like, I've been uncomfortable enough times. Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable this time. Like, you don't always have to push yourself to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah. I think it's just about being open to whatever's happening that day, as far as just as long as you make something and just keep, like you said, keep your North Star and keep marching forward. Continued progress, baby, 1% every day. If you think about that, if you're 1% better every day, which isn't a lot, after 10 days, you're 10% better, right?
Yeah. And I heard that quote actually just recently. And it kind of threw me, because I was like, yeah, ultimately I love that. But then I was like, well, what's better? Like, is just doing the thing better? Like,
yes, it is.
Just doing the same thing, like, it might not actually be better. I don't know.
Yeah, doing anything is better than doing nothing, right?
There you go. I completely agree with that. And then so that's the better.
Yeah, and I don't mean better work.
It's okay to draw another crappy picture.
Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that, the actual work needed to be better, but like 1% better is just like, I think if you're trying every day that you're trying and you just don't give up is 1% better. Like, I think as long as as long as you keep that focus, right? You still have the focus, and you may have a really shitty day. Like, you may draw or write a song or do a podcast episode or whatever this medium is, make a filet mignon, whatever, that sucked. But as long as you don't quit tomorrow, then I think you've got that 1% better, because A, you've learned hopefully from what you did yesterday, but B, you had the gumption to not quit on yourself. So maybe that's worth something.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Failure is another big one that we actually didn't really touch on, but it's super important. It's critical to the process. And I love that you put that, obviously learning from the failure, but also gaining from the not giving up. That's huge. And I have not often associated that or thought of that part of the moving forward from a failure. So there's like so many dimensions that we're able to grow from these failures, these negatives, again, these like awkward, uncomfortable things. Yeah, but they're still like such rich soil. It's so weird. I don't know what that is.
It is weird, and I think we need to you know, I never liked the word failure, because if it's something that didn't work, like if you I think failure only works in parachutes. Like if your parachute fails, you make a parachute and it doesn't work, that's a failure. Yes. But like if you make a piece of art and it doesn't connect with somebody, that's not a failure. That's a success because you made it. It just may not have worked as you had hoped. But like failure is a pretty strong word, I think. So I don't like the word, because I think if you're trying and it's just not yet clicking, I don't see that as a failure. I see it as, that's what I call continued progress. Like,
I like that too, because failure does have it's like a definitive. It sounds like a definitive word, like this black or white. Like it's over, it's wrong, it's bad, it's done. It's like, it's not really like that.
Right, exactly. It's like when you teach a kid, like in school, you know, it's like, I failed a test, therefore I'm a failure.
Right. So extreme.
No, you just failed a test. You just got a bad grade on a test.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of how I grew up. It was like, you know, it was just a test. It doesn't exercise anything of your being. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means you need to try harder next time and do better on the next test, which you can do. All of us can do.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very. I hope you have kids, because those are good little wisdom nuggets right there.
I don't have any kids. I'm adopting you, DK.
Okay. I don't have them either. So we'll just, the viewer is now our peripheral children of,
There you go. So look, I'm not going to keep you any longer, but what are you working on, man? What do you want to talk about? Tell everyone where they can find you and subscribe to the channels and all that stuff.
Just search Dustin Klein, or just Dustin Klein YouTube, spelled however you want to spell it. And that's pretty much it. Same thing for Instagram. Those are the two main platforms I use. And I don't know, that's it. If you're into it, you'll go deeper. If you're not, it's okay. I understand. That's pretty much it. I don't know. Just keep making things and staying healthy.
I think what you're doing is great. I really enjoy it. I really do. I'm not just blowing smoke. I think it's funny and engaging, and it's got a soul, and it there's always a poignant moment in your stuff, and you're super conscientious about everything from the environment to health, and passionate about cycling, which I too am passionate about cycling. So again, I appreciate the time, and thanks for being here, man.
Wow, what an ending. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dustin Klein as much as I did. Make sure to check him out online at dustinklein.com or on YouTube. And make sure to check us out at themindunset.com or on Instagram at themindunset. Come back next week for episode 3. And the one thing I want to mention is the last week of July and the last week of every month, we're going to launch a new segment called Strong Coffee, Strong Women, where I get to sit down and share a cup of great coffee with some badass women. My first guest in this series is Taylor Lynn, the granddaughter of legendary country music icon Loretta Lynn. Taylor and I sat down and spoke for about an hour. She was at a ranch in Nashville. It was a wonderful time. It was quite funny, and she had just played Loretta's 90th birthday celebration at the Grand Ole Opry. So don't miss that, and don't miss the other episodes following. So we appreciate you very much. Drop us a line, and until next time, be nice, do good stuff.